Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for today's event. My name is Taylor, and I'm going to be your host. Virtually today, we are going to meet local award winning author James Ponti and learn more about the One Book, One Community 2022 chosen title, Framed. One Book, One Community engages Central Florida to read the same book with discussions and educational activities. Now, friends, before we get started, there are a few things that you can do to fully enjoy all of the resources and services that the library has to offer. One, caregivers. It is never too early for your child to register for their own library card. You and your child can visit ocls.info/get your card for more information and sign up right after today's event. Two, sign up for Beanstack. Beanstack is an online interactive platform where you can access different reading challenges, you can get book recommendations, and so much more. You can access Beanstack and register for your account by going to ocls.beanstack.org. And finally, you can register to attend our virtual events by accessing ocls.info/events and looking at all of our upcoming virtual and in person events. All right. Without further ado, I am very excited to invite author James Ponti and OCLS librarian author Lauren Mather.
Hello, hello. Hey,
Hey,
Lauren.
James. Hello. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited that you're joining me here at OCLS. Uh, I'm so excited for you. You are this year's One Book, One Community read.
It seems kind of hard to believe, but yes, I am. And it's a thrill and it's wonderful and part of my hometown thing. It's just good all around. And I get to talk to you, one of my favorite library people in the world. So that's good.
And you're one of my favorite authors. So this is going to be a delight.
It's just going to be us saying compliments to each other. So that should
Honestly,
be
the whole time.
this should be nice.
Well, we're thrilled you're here. I would love to talk about Framed. Framed is such a fun book and such a great book for elementary, middle school readers who just love a good mystery. So, for those who haven't read it yet, can you just like give us a little overview of what Framed is about?
I really can't imagine there's anyone who hasn't read it by this point. No. It's funny because I have written six books since I wrote Frame. So I'm trying to keep. I actually just ran. Oh, I realized I didn't have a copy handy, so I just ran over to the cabinet and back during the little countdown. But Framed is the story of a 12-year-old boy named Florian Bates, and Florian is and his best friend Margaret. And Florian moves around all the time. His family, he's constantly changing schools, and because he's doing that, what he's done is he's developed this technique he calls toast, the theory of all small things. And what Florian believes is that people are often deceitful or misleading with big things, but they overlook little details. So really, if you just look for little details, that will help you figure out the truth quickly. And for Florian, this is a survival technique. He changes schools so much, he wants to figure out, okay, who seems like they're nice, but is really maybe a bully or mean, or who's nice, or where do you get pizza in this town, or where's your favorite egg roll, all this kind of stuff. And so Florian uses toast as a survival technique. And then he moves to Washington, D.C. at the start of the book, and he meets his neighbor, and he, I won't spoil plots, but he ends up exposing her to toast, and she sees much bigger potential. They go all over DC that summer playing games with toast, trying to figure out things about people, trying to figure out things like, where someone's from or what stop they're getting off the metro or whatever. And they come across a crime without realizing it. And then when some paintings are stolen from the National Gallery of Art, they have the head start of figuring it out, and that leads to them becoming consultants with the FBI. It's really fun to write. So Framed is the first book in the series. Then the next book is Vanished, and then Trapped. So 3 books in the series. There you go. Got a couple of them out of there. Hopefully Framed is all checked out for the one community. But so the stories are mysteries solved by Florian and Margaret. But really, to me, what the stories are about are their friendship. The friendship between two people. So we follow that friendship from the moment they meet, and over the course of 3 books, we really get to see it tested and challenged and enjoyed and had fun, and really what it means to be a friend. So that's what Frame is about in a nutshell, from my memory of 6 books ago.
Oh, I love it because it has that endless possibility that these kids are just kids, but then they become consultants for the FBI, which is the total normal thing that every kid does,
It really
obviously.
happens.
But I love that because it kind of gives a sense of anything is possible,
Right.
and what a child does is meaningful, and that's absolutely true. What children do, whether or not working for the FBI, is absolutely important.
Well, what's been really fun about writing the framed books is I love mysteries. I love reading them. I love writing them. I love watching mystery movies. I mean, we're pretty much all mystery all the time here in the house. I live downtown Orlando. Here we are in the house. And one of the things that I really felt strongly about was I didn't want this mystery to cheat. I feel like some mysteries are fun to watch, but that they cheat. And an example of that is Sherlock Holmes. And as much fun as I love Sherlock Holmes, all the variations and all the incarnations of it, I think it cheats because Sherlock solves things that no one else can solve because of his encyclopedic knowledge of tobacco or something like that. And I thought, I want to have this kid be like Sherlock, but actually have no super skill other than the fact that he's just taught himself to look for details, because then the readers can do the same and they can play along. But what I didn't expect, and everywhere I go, and every school group I ever talk to, they're like, can you use toast? Because I use toast. And they're trying to use toast because by naming it, it went from just being observation to it's a thing you can do and you can hone and you can practice. And that is the unintended, delightful surprise of writing these books is I have now been toasted and asked to toast um, all across the country at school with school kids everywhere. And that's always either the first or last question of every assembly kind of thing. So that's been really fun.
I love that. And how did you come up with the idea of toast? Because that's such like you said, kids use it. It's great.
It's
I'll use it.
I travel a ton for I worked in television now. I was a producer at the Golf Channel. I was a writer for Nickelodeon. I was a writer for Disney Channel. I traveled a lot for work, and then started traveling a lot for books as well. And I ended up at airports bored to death waiting for flights a lot. And as a game, I started playing this game. I don't know when, which was I would sit in, and you when you're traveling for work, your family's not there, your friends aren't there. You're
Mhm.
on your own in the gate waiting for the flight that's been delayed now for 2 hours. And I started doing this game where I would look at people and I would try to figure out as much as I could about them without knowing anything about them, without talking to them, just by what they wore or what they carried. And I became good at it, and in the sense that we all can, because people give away so much. Like the first thing you'd look, you'd see a group coming, and there'd be kids, parents, and like one grandparent. So the first game is, okay, that grandparent is whose mother or whose father
Yep.
of the husband and wife,
Mhm.
and you oh, the nose, it's the mom, and then you'd see, oh, he's wearing an Ohio State shirt and she's wearing a Cleveland um, Cavaliers shirt. And it's like, okay, they're probably from Ohio. So now I know she's the mom and they're from Ohio, and they've got and oh, it's spring break, and all of a sudden, and then sometimes I may have moved over and sat near them and eavesdropped a little to see if I was right. But it wasn't really even about
Not
being
creepy.
right. The challenge was, can you come up with a whole story about people just by looking at them? And that was how I passed the time waiting for flights. And then when I started writing this book, I knew I wanted to write a mystery series. And I knew I wanted the kid not to have a super talent, but just to have a really well developed sense of something. And I thought, okay, I'll do the thing I do at the airport. That's what he'll do. But then the trick became it needs a name, because if it has a name, it
Right.
elevates it, makes it something different. And I wish there was some great story about I was having breakfast, had a piece of toast, and the light shone from heaven, and the writing gods came in. And really, I just thought, well, what could I name it? And in like 5 seconds, I said, "Toast: The Theory of All Small Things." I thought, oh, you looked into that, and I wrote it down, and never changed it. But
That's perfect.
what's funny about that is this is a very long answer to your question, so I apologize.
No, I love it. I love long answers.
Toast as an
Good.
acronym doesn't work in foreign languages because
Oh
theory of all
no.
small things doesn't spell the French word for toast, the Italian word for toast. So when it got translated to other languages, my request was always that they come up with an acronym that means some kind of food. So like in France, it's gratin. It's not
Ah,
toast, they play gratin. That means cheesy, which seems appropriate for me.
That's really cool. You know, I never thought of that. I know your book's been translated in several languages, but I never thought that. I mean, that makes sense that acronyms don't
And
make sense.
acronyms pop up in all of my books for some reason. I
Yeah.
must be obsessed with them.
Yeah. No, that's not good.
So I
But I
always
love.
think of that. I always feel empathy for the translators.
Oh, I love that you get like you're like, okay, do what you need to do, but make it food. I think
Yeah,
that's delightful.
make it something because I want it to be fun for the kids reading it. And food is more fun than if it's fig tree or whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Food
Not
is
as
good.
That's fun. I have some questions to you, but I'm gonna actually skip ahead because you brought it up. How many other languages has it been translated into? And like, can you remember? Do you have any that
Okay.
covers?
So
Share.
framed has been translated into French, Italian, Azerbaijani,
Wow,
Russian, and Polish, I think.
it's amazing.
And then City Spies, which has an international cast, so I kind of thought, well, it's been translated into at least 10 countries. So City Spies, which is my newest series, that's
Mhm.
in France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Sweden, Netherlands, Poland, Israel, Turkey, and some other couple. Oh, actually, just Ukraine. Ukraine was the newest one. So I am very hopeful that soon Ukrainian kids will have free time and nice time and be able to read, and hopefully they'll enjoy City Spies.
That's incredible that it's been translated into so many languages. Do you remember any of the other Toast acronyms?
You know what? I don't remember the toast acronym. I forget the
I was
Italian
kidding.
one. The Italian one, I don't think they were able to do it as food, and they have really weird.
Um,
Do I have the covers here? No, I've all the frame stuff's been replaced by City Spice stuff on the bookshelf. So yeah, no.
or framed.
So you caught me there. I do not remember the other acronym.
That's okay. I was just curious. I think it's awesome that kids around the world get to read it now.
It's wonderful, and
Yeah.
it's surprising, and it's just like I can't believe it sometimes. The single, I am the least cool person, and a lot of people. The
You
single
are not.
closest to cool moment of my life is we were on a trip, and actually we were in Paris, and I actually stopped by the publisher, and I got to tell my wife, let's stop by my French
French publisher.
French publisher's office.
So fancy.
It seemed like the most ludicrous statement I could possibly ever utter in my life.
I
Although I
love it.
guess the more ludicrous would be, let's stop by my Azerbaijani.
That'd be amazing. That's amazing. I love it so much. You actually, so you mentioned, traveling with the book and all, and you mentioned that the book takes place part in Washington, D.C., because that's where Florian moves. What are you probably had to do a lot of research to get everything right with this. And can you tell us a little bit
Yeah,
about some of the
well,
research that went into creating Florian's world?
I love Washington, and so as a kid we traveled there all the time. We didn't have much money, and Washington was great because if you could drive there, which we could, everything there is free. So my mom loved to take us there to Washington. We go to Smithsonian's, we go to monuments, we do all that, and I just fell in love with it. And we always went. And so then when we were raising kids, we did the same thing. So we'd been there a bunch, and I wanted to set it someplace that felt like it felt international, but without having them travel a bunch. And
Yeah.
Washington really fit the bill. The first series I wrote was set in New York, so I didn't want to go there again. But Washington was great because you have these embassies, you have people from all over, and everything in Washington is symbolically powerful. The FBI is there, and the White House is there, and the Smithsonian isn't just a museum; it's our museum. And it's great if you can. I know you wrote a book set in Orlando, and that's super fun because if you're from Orlando, you connect to it in a different way. And one of the things that I liked about DC is that no matter where you're from, because it's our capital, everyone feels a little bit of ownership there. And a lot of people have been there, not everyone, but a lot of kids. So if I write about real places, that will seem real to the reader. And so I would go and I would research as much as I could and go to as many places as I could. And all of the places in the three cities or in the three frame books I have been to. Like there's a fire station where Margaret was left as a baby, abandoned as a baby, and she was adopted from. I went there, I talked to the firemen, they showed me around. There's There's a public library. Libraries are a big part. I really believe in libraries. There are actually 4 major Washington libraries in the third book, Trapped, and I went and I spent a lot of time at each of them, you
Mhm.
know, and partly it's to make it accurate, but partly it's you find inspiration and go, wow, that's a really neat thing. This library, like the one public library I went to there, because I did DC Public Library, the Library of Congress, the Folger Shakespeare Library, and another DC Public Library, and it was all a green, sustainable building with like vegetation on the
Wow.
roof, and it's like, oh, I would never have come if I just picked library, even off a map, even off of YouTube or something. I wouldn't have gotten all the details, and that then just makes it seem more real. So yeah, I researched a lot. My We went to the Library of Congress, my wife and I did, and they gave us a behind the scenes tour because by that point
Amazing.
the books were doing well and they were nice, and they let us hold Thomas Jefferson's copy of the Federalist Papers and look and get really close to the all the items from the pockets of Abraham Lincoln the night he was killed. And she's a history teacher, so this was like amazing for her and for me. The Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts is where the second book, The Crime, takes place.
Yeah.
They took me around behind the scenes where the kidnapping happens or the disappearance. We don't know what exactly happens. And while we were there, we went. You know, I take pictures. What I do when I go to these places, I just take a bunch of pictures, and then when I'm writing the scene, I pull the pictures up on my computer, and it helps me remember things and really describe things sensory wise. What's the
Mhm.
smell? What's the look? What's the color?
Absolutely.
And we were in the. So I was taking pictures all over the Kennedy Center, and I went into then President Obama's private suite where he could watch shows. It's there for every president, and so I took pictures in there. And then we got out into the hallway afterwards. This man came rushing up to me from security. Apparently, was watching on the video when I did it. He said, "Did you took pictures in there?" He's all flustered. I'm like, "Yeah, it's research." And he goes, "You're not allowed to do that." And I'm like, he goes, "You're not allowed to do that. It's Secret Service get upset and all this stuff." And I'm like, "Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah." And so I stood there and I erased all the pictures and showed it to him. And then I went out into the parking lot and I just restored all the pictures. I don't think he
Don't
knows
admit
how
that.
the phone works. It's been long enough. It's been long enough that I think I'm okay. It's had multiple presidencies since then, so the directions, the decorations have changed.
Oh man, that's really cool that you were able to do that much research for the book. And for those who are reading it, like it's authentic, it's completely authentic in location. So it's kind of like traveling for them too.
My favorite part of the research though actually is um the kids in the book go to Allisteel Middle School,
Mhm.
and my friend from college, her kids go to Allisteel Middle School. That's how I
Oh,
picked it. And I've done presentations at Deal probably 4 or 5 times, and so I would go when I was first writing it, and I would talk about the books, and kids would buy the books because their schools mentioned all over it. But then the kids would show me around, and I would hang out in the cafeteria or go for a walk because I wanted to find out what's really going on with these kids in this life,
hmm.
you know. And then you
Yeah.
find out weird things that you would never guess, like in Washington D.C. there are no school buses, which would have been an easy mistake for me to make, but
Wow.
there are
Yeah.
none in the city at all. You just ride
Huh.
the public bus. Kids ride the bus or the subway for free. So it's if you have a school pass. So little things like that, but it was fun. So lots of research.
That's fascinating. I wouldn't have known that about the school buses either. So, research is really important, obviously,
Yes,
when doing anything like that. That's really cool. Also, you get to learn what's cool for kids nowadays,
it is,
which,
and it's
something I
not
don't
me. It's
know.
not me at all.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure your books are pretty cool. They're not checked in at LFA right
There
now,
we go.
so someone's reading them.
What's not?
We're all reading in them. We're all celebrating. Well, I think Framed is such a cool idea. Everything about it is really cool because, like you were saying, it's a normal kid who's solving solving all these problems and crimes, and it's not because he has superpowers. It's not like Superman. He makes his way, and that's great. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about your inspiration. Like, were there any mysteries? Like, what books did you like growing up, or what mysteries did you like?
All right, first, I have to make an explanation. So this is Lucy.
Oh yeah, we require
Lucy
dogs.
at this moment to need to be petted. So Lucy on the screen. No, she's fine. She's fine. But if you wonder why is this left hand suddenly, I'm trying to keep her calm
The
so she
dog.
doesn't start barking. She's
Pick
fine.
her up. Make her
Um,
cameo.
and she does not like being picked up. That's oh, she's gonna walk away. She's gonna walk away.
Oh,
There we go.
bye.
Okay, Lucy's wagging her tail. Wag your tail, Lucy. 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 All right.
Anyone
Um,
doing a report on you now has extra credit of knowing your dog's name.
There
I
we
feel
go.
like throw that into a school report.
Yeah,
Great.
that's the kind of email I get. For my report, I need to know something. What's your dog's name? What was the question? My goodness, I get this. Oh,
Books you liked growing up or mysteries?
so I was not a strong reader growing up. I just really was slow at it and very frustrated by it, and so I did not do it much. I read the book that I loved the most was from the Mix Up Files was basically Frank Weiler, which
So
was
good.
a mystery and a wonderful one.
Mhm.
And then another book series that I loved was Encyclopedia Brown.
Yes.
And what I liked about those was a twofold. First of all, they were short. That so even though I struggled at reading, I could sit down. I could read one. It was like they were like in any book there was maybe 7 or 8 stories about 12 pages long by memory. I could be way off on that.
No, it's like that. And then the answer is upside down. You had to like flip it to see. Those are great. All of those books are carried at the library. So if anyone wants to check them out, we have Encyclopedia Brown and Mixed Up Files.
This is a signed copy, signed by Donald Sobel.
What? That's awesome.
That some librarians got for me. So yeah, these are great. And like you said, at the back, you go to the back, and there is the solution.
Yep.
And one thing that's funny, I had no idea at the time. And then Donald Sobel also wrote 2-minute mysteries. They were just it was a series of books, I think like 2 or 3 of them that they were like 3-page mysteries, and my teacher would just read them out loud to the class, and then you had to solve it. Donald Sobel and Elaine Konigsberg, who wrote Mix Up Files, are also Florida writers. So that was kind of a neat thing. I had no idea at the time, but there's been a long tradition of Florida writers. So I love mysteries. I love TV shows with mysteries, and so I always liked reading those and watching those. And I think it's because more than any other type of book or TV show or movie for that matter, the mystery asks you to be a participant. You experience other books, you watch them, that you go with the emotions, but you are an observer. But in a mystery, the game is always kind of from the beginning. Here are the clues. Can you figure it out before the character does, or do you agree? And that's really fun for me, and I really like writing that as well. And all the frame books, what I did for 2 reasons was I started all of them with the climax. So the first chapter actually is the climax of the story, and that chapter ends when Florian figures out who did it. And then you go back in time and you come through it. And partly it's because I wanted to grab the reader or someone who picked it up. It's like, well, is this going to take forever to get going? It's like, well, we're going on the first page, hopefully. But also what I wanted, and that game component is, I wanted the reader to know, okay, so in the first book, it starts and we see, this isn't spoiling anything, it's the first chapter.
Page.
You see our bad guy's tattoo of a daisy is the key. Florian says, your tattoo changes everything. And now as an audience, as a reader, okay, I've got to figure out why that tattoo. So I've already been given the code of, here's the key thing. This is the thing that solves it. You have to figure out how. And then you have 200 pages or so until we get back to that moment, and we're going to find that out. And that, for me, made it even more game-like for me and for the reader. Like, okay, I'm gonna give you everything up front, and then my hope is, as a writer, that you don't figure it out unless you maybe figure it out 1 page before Florian does. But most of all, I want you not to figure it out, but the second you hear the answer, to go, of course that's it. How did I miss that? And because then that means I've been fair. Because there are a few things more frustrating to me than if I read a mystery or I watch a show, and then the clue that solved it is something that, it's like, that was nothing. That we didn't even see that. That happened off the page, and that's frustrating to me. So I'm going to play fair, and I'm going to give you everything right off the bat.
Well, I like that. I like that it's a solvable mystery where it comes together. And I love that aha moment of like, oh, of course it's that, you know? um, what's great about mysteries in general and what you were saying about your books is that they are great for people who don't necessarily love reading yet. Like you said, you weren't a strong reader,
Right.
and that's very common. So a mystery, and one that, you know, is very upfront at the beginning, is great for those readers because it is active. The entire time you're like, okay, but who did it? Why is it this person? You're playing along, and that's so it makes reading more engaging and interactive, and I love that. And I love how you start your books. It reminded me, not in a complete different genre, but very much like Star Wars, where Star Wars starts in the middle of a battle or in
Right.
the
No.
middle of something, and you're like, yes, I'm in. And that's how your book very much is. You're like, it's in the middle, it's at the end pretty much, but you're like, but wait, how did we get here? And so then you have to rewind.
That's not accidental in the sense that so my background and my education is film and television.
Right.
So my degree is in screenwriting. I went to USC, which is where George Lucas went. All my classes, for the most part, were in the George Lucas building. So the movies of that era, especially, and really continue to this day, movies traditionally will start with a, a, an ongoing. You're right in the middle of something incredible, and you can't catch your breath until the end of the scene. You know, for me, the classic example, like the movie that really made me think I want to work in film and TV, was Raiders of the Lost Ark. You know, and Raiders of the
So
Lost Ark
good.
starts with this great moment where Indiana Jones is trying to find the temple, and so there's mystery, and there's tarantulas, and there's, you know, poison darts, and then there's this incredible chase with the idol and a boulder, and then there's this incredible chase with the Jovitos, and then he's running and he wants to get on the seaplane, whatever, the boat, the plane that has the pontoons on it, and he jumps in, and then he's scared of the snakes.
Snake.
And so you've had all these emotions in the first 10 minutes, and the funny thing is that has nothing to do with the movie. None of that matters to the movie at all. It's just, you know, okay, you see the bad guy, but even then, it doesn't matter. We just know he's a bad guy. But the second he talked with the French accent, you were going to know he's a bad guy, right? The way he played it. So the way we get into movies often is that, wow, and now my adrenaline's pumping, and now I'm curious, and that's going to power me through the exposition and the slow things that sometimes would stop me down. I do not think it's coincidental that right now we are at a time when a lot of the people who write kids' books, whether at middle grade or young adult, but I think really especially middle grade, are people who come from a film and TV background. Chris Travis, Stuart Gibbs, Max Brallier, Suzanne Collins, Shannon Messenger. I mean, even you take someone like Gordon Corman. Gordon Corman's written literally 100 books. His 100th book comes out this summer.
Oh my gosh, really? Wow.
Gordon Corman's first 4 books came out when he was still in school, before he graduated high school. So here's someone who's been writing his whole life. He still went to NYU and majored in film. It's the storytelling techniques that method is really grabs young readers, I think. So that for me was a nice transition from writing Nickelodeon and Disney Channel to writing books.
Definitely. I love it. I have another question, but before I get to that, I just want to say, if anyone has any questions for James, we'll be taking questions. So if you want to type them either on Facebook or YouTube, however you're watching this, we'll be able to take those questions. So I already hear that it's already been said that teachers and scholars are very excited that your book is the One Book, One Community. So
it's pretty
it's
much
not just here that we're excited.
It's a fever that's spread throughout the, no.
We're all excited. So you mentioned very quickly City Spies. City Spies, you have several book series. I love Framed, but can you maybe mention some of the other ones that you have?
Right. So the first series I wrote was called Dead City, and Dead City was about a girl named Molly Bigelow who's recruited to a secret society that polices the undead of New York City. And that was really, really fun to write. It was very much not in my realm. I'm not a zombie person. I'm not a sci-fi or supernatural person, but that story kind of came to me and I liked it. And I really enjoyed doing that. I did 3 of those. And I was really lucky. The first one was nominated for the Sunshine State Award and for the
Yeah.
Bluebonnet Award in Texas, and that really kind of built a little but dedicated audience, which was great. In the next series, I wanted to do something a little more traditional, so I go to Framed, and I wrote the Framed books. And then I really enjoyed that, and I thought, well, Framed did these mysteries all over DC. Let's blow it up some. Actually, what really happened was I finished the second book of Framed, and that night I finished it on a Friday afternoon. And that night, my wife and I flew to London to be with my son, who was going to school in England for the year.
Wow.
And since I finished that book, it was time the next day to start the next book. So I started writing Frame 3 while I'm walking around London and Paris over the next week. And in my head, I'm thinking, wow, it would be great if I had the characters come to London, because how neat is this? And Buckingham Palace and Tower Bridge. And then the next day, I'm like, well, God, you can't have them come to London and not go to Paris and see the Eiffel Tower. And then it very much started feeling like a Brady Bunch episode where the kids are going to Hawaii or they're going to the Grand Canyon. And it's like I'm jumping the shark in the third book in the series because they don't need to go. I built the stories in DC because DC works. So that, well, what's another story that would go to all these cities? And that led me to Spies. And so let me grab a...
City Spies, which all of their books, they've all been Sunshine State books. So
They've all been
which
what?
is
Yeah,
all three have been Sunshine State books, which is tremendous.
So City Spies, City Spies actually won Sunshine State, which was a thrill. City Spies, and then the next one is, they're all behind me on the wall. Golden Gate, and then Forbidden City are the three books in that series. And the City Spies series is about 5 kids from around the world who've all kind of fallen through the cracks. And through odd circumstances that we talk about in the book, they end up getting adopted by this British secret agent. And he knows nothing better than to raise them as a family of spies. It's the family business. And they become this team of spies that MI6 sends out on missions when adults would stand out. And yes, that sounds silly. It's kids as spies, but actually to me, kids are spies. I mean, middle school to me was very much, let's try a new identity and let's try to blend in and hope no one notices, and let's try to figure out the codes that are going on. And it's been tremendously fun to write, and they've really built on the success of Framed, and they've been more successful still, which has been great, and New York Times bestselling list and stuff like that, which is
just throw that out there.
No, but I mean, it's
amazing. You have to celebrate that.
And so I'm doing that. I'm doing at least 6 books in that series. So I just finished. This is the 4th one. I turned it in yesterday. So that's why I look like I haven't slept for a while.
Lovely cover.
I think we may go with a more professional cover for the release version. I'll show you the first page. We'll tease the first page.
Oh man! I'm gonna do a screen grab.
And then I'm also starting a new series called the Sherlock Society that is a mystery series based in Florida. So pretty soon I'm going to start having 2 books a year come out. One in the City Spies book in February, and then Sherlock Society in summer. And that's fun because now I'm getting to, I love the mystery. So it's the mystery stuff like we did with Framed, but I get to write about Florida and Florida specific stuff. And and it's multi-generational, which is really fun. It starts with a pair of siblings whose last name happens to be Sherlock. So they really have no other option for a job, and they open up and their grandfather was an investigative reporter for the paper. So along with him, so it's kind of multi-generational, they research and investigate old cases that he was never able to get. So the old cold cases from 70s and 80s South Florida. So it's really fun.
That's so cool. There's definitely enough material from old cases for South Florida.
There is, yes.
We do have a viewer question. Okay. And what was the most difficult character to create in Framed?
The most difficult character to create is probably the spy who adopts them. Because you have to walk this balance of, and I don't want to spoil things, and is why is this guy doing this? So I had to come up with, for me, a plausible reason, and really what you find out, and this is early enough so I can say, is he's married and his wife is also a spy, but she's turned out to be a double agent, and she disappeared and took their kids with her. And so he's really searching the earth for his kids who have been hidden by an expert spy who knows how to hide anybody. And while searching for his kids, he's finding other kids in need, and he can't turn his back. And so while trying to build his family, he ends up building an entirely different family. And trying to walk that line of what his personality would be like and the backstory and how it executes, that was the trickiest probably. So the trickiest to write is one of the kids, my mom and I and my wife went to see the movie Dead Poet Society.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Great movie, but it's all
Very
kids.
sad.
It's kids set in the 50s, and all the kids have the same haircut, and they all wore the same uniform, and none of them were known actors at the time. So midway through the movie, my mom turns to me and says, I don't know which kid is which, right? And that always stuck with me. And I thought, I want to make sure these kids, you don't lose track, because 5 kids is a lot of kids to keep track of in a book.
Yeah.
And so I decided what I'd do is they have to erase their past. But what they do is they take the city they're from as their code name. So they call each other by the cities they're from, and that's the connection. So we have Brooklyn and Paris and Sydney and Rio and then Kat. And Kat is from Kathmandu. And she's the trickiest one to write because she is a math wizard code breaker. Similar to Florian and Toast, to be honest. Some of the same skill set in there. And writing that, I have to write her. I have to become better at math than I am because I'm only not great at it. So that's the trickiest one, because when she looks at something and she pieces it together using math, it has to be believable, and it has to leave the reader going, okay, wow, that's good. So that's the hardest one to write, I think.
That's interesting. I am also learning math for my 2nd grader because I'm like, I'm good at, oh no, this is hard. This is hard.
It's really hard. Yeah. and mine's gone through college now. It doesn't get easier. 2nd grade is your last chance to help at all. And even then
I'm doomed after that.
Right.
That's a great answer though, because I mean, you answered before some of the research that went into creating the locations that you wrote about, but what was some of the research per se that went into characters? Like how much research did you have to do for, detective solving or, math and all of that? What was some of the research?
It was a fair amount. And when I decided, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to name them after the cities they're from. And I felt good about that, and I liked that decision. But then you run into the problem of, well, we're not going to have a kid named Claremont. We're not going to have a kid named Altamont Springs, right? So you have to come up now with cities that sound like they could be named. Orlando is actually one. So I made a list of about 60 cities around the world to and then I thought, well, I really want the kids to be from different places. So I broke them up by continents. So each kid is from a different continent. So Australia was going to be either Darwin or Sydney. Sydney worked. In the U.S., Orlando, I didn't consider it long because I'm from here, and I thought that's too obvious. But Brooklyn, Charlotte, Savannah, Austin, Dallas,
tons.
There's a lot, and then I ended up going with Brooklyn. And then once you have the cities picked, then it was interesting because normally you come up with the characters first and you name them. But I came up with the names first, and then from the cities, I thought, well, what would a kid from Sydney, Australia be like that's different than a kid from Brooklyn? And actually, their names led me to their personalities to a degree.
That's cool. Yeah. How'd you get the name Florian Bates in Framed?
Florian was so I have different name techniques that I use. So the 2 common techniques I use for naming characters are I go to the Social Security website, and you can look up any year back to quite a long time back. So I look up the year the character was born in my head, 12-year-old. So, okay, it's this. Then you pick the 500 most common names from kids that year, pull that list up. And I normally skip the first 50 or 100 and then start reading down the list for names that I like. So they're names that are accurate, that are real, but are not super common.
Yeah.
Then with international characters, what I'll do is I will look up the national soccer teams, men's and women's, from that country. And that'll always give me 40. And so 40 or so, and so I'll look at the first. I don't do a first and last name combo because I don't want to name it after. Like if I named the kid Cristiano Ronaldo, people
Yeah,
would
no,
recognize that, right?
you know
But
that.
I'll look at the and I'll pick out from that. I name characters after people I know a lot. That's kind of like little Easter eggs hidden throughout. But Florian was an example of someone that no, Florian's name was essential to me that it be something special.
Mhm.
And I actually the original version that I had the book was really different in my original imagination. In my original imagination, Florian solved the case of the first book really quickly and became a celebrity. And it was about people from all over coming to him. And then my agent actually was the one who said, "Wouldn't it be more fun if it was a secret?
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
like what he did was a secret?" And
Mhm.
and that's when then I knew the FBI. It's like, okay, he's the secret weapon of the FBI. But
Mhm.
always I wanted it to be that his initials were FB, so that his little company would be FBI, Florian Bates Investigations, or Fred Barnes Investigations, or
Yeah.
whatever. So I knew I wanted that. So then it's like, okay, so now I need an F first name and a B last name.
Mhm.
And there's two ways to go. So there's the James Bond way. So Ian Fleming picked James Bond's name because it was the most unspy sounding name he could come up with. It was the most average. It was on the cover of a book in his house in Jamaica, and I think James Bond wrote the like History of Birds of Jamaica or Flowers of Jamaica or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And he goes, "That's a dull name. So that's fun to have a character with a dull name doing exciting things." As someone named James, I'm offended, but that's another issue. Or Sherlock Holmes. And I love the fact that Sherlock Holmes that name is so unique that you just say Sherlock and everyone knows it.
Yeah.
And I thought, I think I want to go that way. So
Yeah.
I want a name that's like wow for the first name, and then I need punctuation for the second name. It's like boom. So one
Mhm.
syllable.
Mhm.
And I was watching the credits of a TV show, and there's a cameraman named Florian Ballhaus, and I thought Florian, and I go, okay, now I have Florian, and then it was like Florian Bing, Florian Bing. I just wanted one and Florian Bates. I bet Florian Bates. That's it.
Perfect.
So
That's awesome.
it's the sound that mattered the most to me, the sound of the first initial, and I
That
wanted
makes
it to be the only one. I didn't want anyone else. Like I didn't want anyone reading it to have a Florian in their school for the most part.
yeah, it's not a common name that I would know, which is pretty great
And it
that
sounds international, but not
it's
specifically of one national. Like, is it
no,
French? Is it German? Is it
no idea.
Italian? Yeah,
No
yeah,
idea.
we don't know.
It's a great one though. A great one that. Oh, we've heard that they love your story of how Florian came to be, the name came to be. So excellent, excellent. I think it's great. I think choosing a character's name is so important because it's kind of like you said, it makes the character. Someone like Sherlock Holmes, you just say Sherlock, everyone knows exactly that type of person, that type of character. So a name like Florian, I think you did a great job in doing a strong name that ended with a punctuation. And is memorable.
I wanted them all. I wanted it to be called the Flo. I wanted that to be the title of the series, the Florian. So I also wanted to name it Civil War.
Oh.
Simon Schuster wasn't interested in that. They don't care what I think about titling. Um,
The Florian Bates mysteries would
you
be
know,
very cute.
So anyway, but that's another thing. I'm over it now.
That's That's a great. Well, I'm gonna leave it with that question. That was the original title? Did you have any other titles for Framed, or was it always
Well,
after?
that was just what I thought the series should be called. They shot that down before we even got the titles. Actually, what happened was I had the cover before we had the title,
Oh wow!
and so it was like sent to me with like this artwork that said like it had this, and then where the title is, it just said title to come from author, which really felt a lot like we were able to do a whole book and a whole cover, and he still can't come up with a name. And so I looked at that, and I said framed,
Yeah.
and so then that came out. Then the next book comes, and
I like
but then I realized if it's a one title, they all have to be one word titles.
Yeah.
Even,
At that point.
and then actually the artist just did this, and he put his own title on it. He put Vanished on it. When I didn't even involve it. The art, it's like Paul Hoppy, the artist, like That's not who comes up with the title, but the publisher saw it and goes, I love that title. So it's like, oh,
Ah, so you didn't even name it.
no,
Oh
I didn't give
no.
a chance.
I like it though. I
I
like
do.
it.
I don't have a problem with it, but I do have a
Yes.
problem with the methodology.
Yes.
And
Concur. I concur.
yeah.
Did you at least make Trapped, or did they
Correct,
play soul to
and actually, I came up with the title for the fourth book. If I ever write one, I know the
Ah.
plot of the fourth book would be called Escaped. And it's about someone who has escaped from prison and is looking for Margaret to get back at Nick the Knife.
Ooh, I said that was my last question, but quickly, is there any chance of you writing the fourth one, or is that like,
I have signed contracts for so many books right now
yeah?
that none of them are for the fourth one of Framed. And I have like 5 more books I think that I owe. So I don't
Mhm.
know when or where I would get to that.
Oh, the
Um,
third book title was Trapped.
Trapped is the third book because they were trapped in the vault at the bottom of the Library of Congress.
Yep.
But what was funny is when I go to DC, I would constantly try to figure out how to rob places. It's like, okay, for the next book, what am I going to do? What are they going to solve? And you have the weird thing is to solve the mystery, you first have to come up with the crime. And so I came up with this crime for the Bureau of Engraving where they print all the money. And I came up with I think I'm not going to say it because I might end up using it still. This really great idea for. Oh, I came up with Trapped. I was not going to be done by the artist again, so I turned it in with the title. Normally, I don't do that. I turned that one in with the title. This one's going to be called Trapped, and then and actually, to be honest, because the first one was framed and the second one was vanished. Before I wrote the book, I came up with a list of 50 words that end in ed that could be a title
Perfect.
to figure out what the right title was, and that's it. So I came up with the title before I even came up with the book. So now I go, okay, they're gonna be trapped somewhere. But no, so I figured out a good crime for the Bureau of Engraving, and that was good.
I love it. I love it. Well, looking at the time, I had a blast talking to you today.
It's great talking to
Um,
you. I do want to talk about one thing though, if I can
Yes,
just. So we joke around, and you and I have known each other for years, and we could. It is such an incredible honor for me that my book is part of this wonderful program. And I'm going to be doing events all throughout Central Florida over the next month and into May. Yeah, I guess that's all within the
Okay.
next month. And it's such a thrill. It's sponsored. The One Book One Community is sponsored by the Sentinel. That's special to me because when I arrived here out of college and was living for free in my mother's house, which was I was already married. This was not the best plan to start.
It's fine. It's fine.
Some of my first work was for the Sentinel. I wrote for the Sunday magazine, the Orlando magazine, or what's it called? Florida magazine is what it's called. It used to come out in the Sunday Sentinel, and that was where I developed writing skills because I had a different background. I had a screenwriting background, and so it's always held such a special part in my heart. And then I went on and did other things and all like that, and then come back and have totally by serendipitous intersection, the Sentinel being involved again in the books is just an honor for me, and being a Central Florida author is an honor. I know you feel the same way. We have some good ones in town. We really do. We have some really great writers in the area, and more importantly, we have great readers. Our young readers, and that the library, Orange County Library System, does such an incredible job of coming up with programs, and it's just an honor. So this month is going to be so much fun. I hope some of you come out to our in-person events.
Yes.
I know I'm going to be at Alafaya with the wonderful Lauren in person, and we're going to do stuff. I have other coming up, and so it's going to be it's really great. But I want to just tell young readers out there, you may not like my books, and that does not upset me at all. But there are books out there you're going to love, and don't give up on it. I gave up too easily. We live in a time of so many great books, and if you like mysteries, read The Weston Game, read Stu Gibbs' books, read Elizabeth Eulberg's books, read From the Mixed Up Files, read Encyclopedia Brown. There are so many great mysteries out there, and in a time when so many things are about superheroes and superpowers. It's important to remember that the greatest power to solve problems is your brain. And these books are all about brain power and smarts, and kids are as smart as anyone.
I love that. Come see James Ponti in person at the Alabama branch on Saturday, April 30th at 2 p.m. We'll have a select number of free books. So if you come with supplies last, we will have free copies of Framed to give out.
I meant to have it. I left my wallet on the other side of the house, but my library card. Get your library card. Go.
Get your library card. Come see
uh,
us. Come see James.
I love when people buy books, but I love when people check out books. You go to the library. It doesn't cost any money. It's the greatest single invention that we've got. It's this place where you go and get books for free. How wonderful is that? All right, you take care. Have a wonderful time.
Thank you so much. I'm going to bring Taylor back on, but thank you so much for coming, James. We had a blast.
Hey, Lauren. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Thank you to you and James for answering our question, giving us a great presentation. We hope that you friends have enjoyed this presentation as well, gotten to know our author, James Ponti. As he said, make sure that you sign up for your library card if you don't have one. We also encourage you to look at our upcoming events at ocls.info/events. And then finally, we would love to have your feedback about today's virtual event. So if you can complete our survey in English or in Spanish, you can access that at ocls.info/survey. We are so excited that you joined us today. Again, I am your host, Taylor, and we will see you next time. Bye, friends.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to be the first to find out when we have new fun and informative videos for you. Orange County Library System is your place to learn, grow, connect.